Hi and welcome to this video, this time with a bit more serious topic. In much of the Western world, governments are pushing for new laws and restrictions on the internet. But before we can discuss what's happening right now, we have to understand where it started. Because everything is connected. If you only look at the government's position, it can sound reasonable. But if you look further at the long-term results of these steps, it starts to look like one of the most dystopian eras we will ever witness in human history. And all of it comes under the label of protecting children. It all started with adult content being freely accessible online to anyone, including minors. Governments all over the world said this is bad, this has to stop. I remember especially in the mid to late 2010s, governments kept mentioning it, yet they didn't do much because for them the internet was still in an early stage. They said they didn't want minors to access adult-only websites, and they demanded websites implement protections so minors couldn't easily access it. But none of the websites wanted that. It would mean a lot of extra work, a huge disadvantage against competitors, and basically losing customers. So the governments waited, and now it seems like they are ready to take it into their own hand. They want to make sure that minors can't access adult-only sites. And how would they do that? By forcing systems that requires either a live picture of your face or a picture of your ID. And here is the problem. Both of these are terrible ideas. I would not recommend anyone regardless of age to hand this over. Not only because it's unsafe, but because these systems can be manipulated easily. The government knows this, and that's why they use it as a stepping stone to what they wanted all along but didn't have the justification for. Digital ID. Now for some people who aren't aware, digital ID doesn't sound extreme. It's just your ID, but digital, right? Wrong. A full implementation of digital ID, combined with obligations that everyone must have one, means in the long run something much more dystopian, maybe even unavoidable. To be fair, large parts of the ID system are already digitized, but in most countries, at least for now, they are not forcefully attached to services. That's where the things are heading. The issue isn't digital ID itself. A digital ID in theory is just like a physical one, something that represents you. If it stayed like that, used in the same way as a physical ID, there would be no problem. But the real danger is what governments plan to do once the digital ID is fully implemented. Because once digital ID comes and is mandatory to all citizens, the way IDs are used will change. In real life, even for activities technically not allowed for minors, minors can often still do them. We lived in a world that valued freedom. The philosophy used to be, we accept some risk, some damage in exchange for freedom. People need to understand this. To have freedom, you must accept that certain bad things may or may not happen. If you aren't willing to accept that risk, you cannot have freedom. It's simple. A lot of people don't get it. Freedom and safety are two things you cannot maximize at the same time. You either have maximum freedom with limited safety, or maximum safety with limited freedom. You can't walk both roads at once. So the digital ID itself isn't the issue. The problem is that the government want to use it on literally every single service. Let's imagine it's 2027 and the EU has successfully implemented digital ID everywhere. That would mean every citizen is attached to all their social media accounts on all websites and services. You would be fully trackable, and the government would know exactly what you do on the internet step by step. Here is an example. If you played CS2 on Steam and insult someone, that person could report you. A lawyer could request your real identity, which is directly attached to your account, and suddenly you're in legal trouble for an insult in a video game. And yes, laws exist, but this is insane. I honestly think it's different online compared to real life. Personally, if somebody insulted me in real life or the internet, I couldn't care less in both cases, but that's just my opinion. Now imagine insulting a politician on X or on YouTube, suddenly you could face legal troubles. Also, this is already happening in some EU countries and the UK. Additionally, maybe you wanted to express a constructive anti-government opinion. With this technology, the system can be used in any way, and you will have little to no defense against it. The more you think about this, the more the real consequences show themselves, and it gets even worse. If you think this will only apply to public social media platforms, you are wrong. The EU has been trying for years to push chat control. That means your private messages on WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever, could be scanned probably by an AI. Right now your messages are encrypted, means only you and the person you sent it can read them. nobody else. But if the EU succeed with chat control, your messages will be scanned before encryption, most likely by an AI. It will check if the chat messages contain anything illegal or anything they decide they don't want, and if so, you will get reported to the authorities. By definition, that means the end of privacy, the end of truly private messages. Everything would be as if you typed it publicly. And once chat control is in place, just like digital ID, it can be abused silently without anyone being notified. In fact, chat control might be even worse than digital ID. Because throughout all of human history, you always had the chance to talk privately to someone without the government listening. But if the world keeps getting more digitalized, while private communication is systematically destroyed, we may witness for the first time in history a transparent human, meaning the government can see every aspect of your life. Another layer to watch out, which is indirect related, is poor digital currency. With paper cash you actually have freedom. If you hold it in your hand, you can use it whenever the government wants you to or not, and it's not easily trackable. But digital money, that's a whole different ballgame. It can be frozen, taken away, or even given an expiration date so you are forced to spend it. You are automatically traceable every time you spend, and yes, governments like the EU are working on something called a digital euro. Right now it's not here yet, but once digital money becomes the norm, they will gain total control not just of your speech but of your spending too. So let's assume for a moment digital ID gets fully implemented, becomes mandatory, and all major sites adopt it. Let's also assume chat control gets implemented. That would mean the end of privacy, the end of free speech, and the end of being able to escape the government censorship. And remember, all of these things I listed are coming under the shine label of protection of minors. And the joke of the story is if a teenager wants to watch adult content, they will still find a way. The methods may get harder, but curiosity or desire will always drive them to figure it out. They are not stupid. Ironically, this means minors might end up breaking actual laws just to do what they want. The system criminalizes normal behavior. Personally, I don't think adult-only sites should be randomly accessible to minors. That part I agree with. Accidentally stumbling across it isn't great, but if a teenager actively wants to watch it, I honestly don't see the problem. And let's be clear, when we talk about minors here, most of the time we are talking about teenagers, not little kids. The whole protect the children narrative is mostly propaganda. It's used as a tool to justify surveillance, spying, and government control of data. That data, by the way, will also be used to train the AI systems, maybe even for predicting policing in the future. And we can already see the first signs in 2025. On YouTube, starting August 13, 2025, they rolled out an AI algorithm that scans your watch history. If you are not verified as over 18, and the AI believes from your viewing pattern that you are underage, your account may be restricted. This only applies if YouTube doesn't already know your age. In the UK, starting July 25, 2025, if you aren't already verified or something like a payment method, for example paying a subscription with a credit card in your name, you may be forced to hand over your ID to prove you are 18 just to listen to explicit music. And honestly, if you do need to be over 18 to hear a few swear words, that's ridiculous. If somebody under 18 doesn't know any swear words by then, that's actually sad. It means you are extremely immature and extremely easy to manipulate. So what can we do? Honestly, not much. There are some petitions. In the UK, there is one called Repeal the Only Safety Act. In Europe, there is fightchatcontrol.eu. It's not a petition, but it shows which countries voted for or against chat control. You can also contact your MEPs there. MEPs are members of the European Parliament. But to be honest, signing petitions isn't going to stop this. If people want to prevent it, they will have to protest in real life. And they will have to unelect the politicians currently in power. Anyway, thanks for watching, I hope you liked the video. If yes, leave a like and a sub, and see you next time.